Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of D True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me. In today's episode, we're covering the Alex Murdaugh case. Wow, talk about power going to your head and the things you will do to protect your name. The heinous things a person would do to protect their legacy. And we're going to be diving completely into that because Daily Mail has an exclusive story with the new charges against Alex. South Carolina lawyer Alex Murdaugh, he has been charged with the murder of his wife and son. The former South Carolina attorney, he has been indicted for double murder in the killings of his wife, Maggie Murdaugh, and his son, Paul Murdaugh. And this is almost 13 months after he made an emergency call saying he had found them dead near a dog kennel at the family's country home. Now, these charges, they mark a milestone in a case that encompasses 7 separate investigations into this crazy saga, and they're all involving the 54-year-old attorney at the center of all of this. And so he is charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. And this is after evidence has been presented to a grand jury in Islandton County. So court documents that have now been released allege that Murdaugh shot his wife with a rifle and shot his son with a handgun. And so the civil attorney, who has now been disbarred, had told investigators that he went to the property after visiting with his ailing father and discovered the 2 bodies. South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson said in a statement, "All the efforts of our office and the law enforcement agencies involved in this investigation have been focused on seeking justice for the victims' families." Murdaugh, he reported finding his wife and son shot dead shortly after 10 p.m. on June 7th of 2021. Investigators, they had released very little information on the killings, but word soon came out that the pair had been killed with different guns, an assault rifle and a shotgun. And these killings also placed a spotlight on this prominent Murdaugh family, which has almost a century represented wealth, power, and privilege across the lowlands of South Carolina. For 3 generations, a member of the Murdaughs had served as the chief prosecutor for the state's southern tip, and the family law firm had made a fortune from corporate litigations, often against the railroad running through the area. But as they started doing all this investigations, they began to produce charges against Alex Murdaugh. Prosecutors accused him of diverting $8.5 million in legal settlements from personal injury cases to a bank account he controlled. He's also facing 79 fraud-related charges. 2 other people have been indicted in connection with the alleged financial crime. The portfolio of alleged scams includes a $3.5 million insurance payout due to the family of his late housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, who died after a slip and fall accident in the Murdaugh home. And they have also opened an investigation into the unsolved death of 19-year-old Stephen Smith, whose body was found with blunt force head trauma on a nearby county road in July 2015. Smith's death was initially investigated as a homicide, then blamed on a hit and run. But files with the State Highway Patrol showed that a Murdaugh family member, a personal injury lawyer, called Smith's family on the day he was found, offering to represent them at no charge. The family did tell police that they thought the offer was weird. Smith had attended high school with Buster Murdaugh, which is Alex's only surviving son now. And Smith's mother says, "I do think his death was because he was gay. I said that from the beginning. It was a hate crime." Now, separately, Paul Murdaugh, the son that was found dead last year, was awaiting trial on charges of boating under the influence. The charges had stemmed from a 2019 crash in which 19-year-old Mallory Beach, who was a passenger in the boat, died after being thrown overboard in a collision with a bridge here. And the Beach family's attorney, Mark Tinsley, he said that the Beach family are incensed at the way the criminal investigation was conducted while their daughter's body was missing, and believe people were actively trying to cover up what had happened. And these murder indictments have begun to clarify the chain of events that investigators believe may have led 3 months later to a fake suicide for hire plot in which Alex Murdaugh was allegedly shot in the head by a cousin, Curtis Smith, on a country road in what may have been a plot to give his surviving son, Buster, a $10 million life insurance payout. And the apparent gunshot grazed Murdaugh's head. It didn't even go in, and a toxicology report found opioids and barbiturates in his blood. And Smith, he claimed that he was 1000% certain Murdaugh was not shot. Curtis Smith has been charged with assisted suicide, insurance fraud, and several other accounts. He denies the charges. Days later, Murdaugh checks into an addiction rehabilitation service to treat a long-standing opioid dependency and was later arrested at a second rehab location in Florida on charges that he diverted millions in wrongful death lawsuit settlement funds from the family of Satterfield, again, his former housekeeper, in what prosecutors described as a scheme to sue himself in order to seek an insurance settlement. And so now, in Daily Mail, they get these exclusive outdoor photos where Alex Murdaugh's wife and youngest son were shot dead, execution style, and they are now seen for the first time. And so the outdoor kennel, the outdoor dog kennels where Paul and Maggie Murdaugh were brutally gunned down in a shocking unsolved double murder last summer can now be seen for the first time. And again, these are exclusive pictures obtained by Daily Mail. Maggie Murdaugh and her youngest son, Paul Murdaugh, were found dead in their Moselle, South Carolina family home in a very perplexing crime that was the beginning of a long scandalous saga for the prominent legal family, which was led by patriarch Alex Murdaugh. Now, a little over a year later, Alex Murdaugh is facing murder charges in relation to his wife and son's death. And he has now been charged on 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime after allegedly shooting Maggie with a rifle and Paul with a shotgun at their home. Now, the family dog kennels where the bodies were found now stand empty, with the dogs that mom of 2, Maggie Murdaugh, loved so much long gone. And probate records show that the property, which was in Maggie's name at the time of her death, was recently sold for $3.9 million, funds that are already claimed by the family's numerous creditors. And you can see this is the outdoor kennels where Maggie and Paul were shot dead, and they were gunned down on the night of June 7, 2021. And at the time, Alex told police that he found their lifeless bodies when he returned to the family home around 10 p.m. that night. And you can see here, you can see the entrance to the family property. You can see the distance from the Murdaugh family home. You can see where Alex Murdaugh calls 911 crying, claiming he returned home to find the bodies. And you can see Maggie and Paul's bodies are discovered next to the kennels on the family property. And the death of the mom and son shocked the South Carolina community and until now had remained unsolved. Paul, who was only 22 when he died, rest in peace Paul, was shot twice with a shotgun, once in the head and once in the chest, while Maggie 52 years old when she was killed, rest in peace Maggie Murdaugh, had been shot multiple times with an assault rifle. And so 13 months ago, Alex told police he found the bodies of his youngest son and wife by these kennels when he returned to the family's 1,700-acre hunting estate of Moselle around 10 p.m. In an audio of the 911 call that Alex had placed at 10:07 p.m. that night, he can be heard telling the dispatcher in a highly pitched screech, "I need the police and an ambulance immediately. My wife and child were just shot badly." According to several sources, Paul Murdaugh's body was found partially inside one of the kennels, while his mother's was several feet away, leading investigators to believe that she ran from her killer before being gunned down. At least 2 of her gunshot wounds were believed to have been inflicted while she was on the ground. If the dogs barked that night, they did so in vain. In the immediate aftermath of this terrible discovery, the Murdaugh's family and attorneys, they were so adamant in the defense of the man and his marriage. According to one lawyer, Murdaugh had a ironclad alibi, and his marriage with Maggie was full of love. But in the intervening months, a very different picture has emerged, casting doubt on both claims, with evidence and witness testimony likely to be heard by a grand jury. His alibi had actually changed over time quite a bit. Initially, he claimed that he was nowhere near the property between 9 and 9:30, and this is the time the coroner gave as the approximate time of death. But in the aftermath of this heinous crime, Murdaugh tells investigators that he was visiting his dying father and his mother about 11 miles away at their home in Barnville at the time of the murder. 2 weeks later, his brothers John Marvin and Randy Murdaugh told Good Morning America that he had in fact dropped his father at a hospital in Savannah before going to visit his mother, who has dementia. Now, according to an account given by Murdaugh's lawyer, Jim Griffin, to the state newspaper, Murdaugh claims to have left the property around 9 p.m. to make the 20-minute drive to his mother's house and return to Moselle as originally claimed around or shortly after 10 p.m. It is an account that places him squarely on the scene within the time frame of the killing. And it has been speculated that audio and video data gleaned from Paul's cell phone found by his body but only recently unlocked by law enforcement is what prompted Murdaugh's dramatic change of tune. Now, there was an independent local news website, Fitz News, that reported that not only does the audio and video data show Murdaugh speaking with Maggie, but that high-velocity impact spatter of blood found on his clothing that night places him at the scene of the murders when at least one of the victims was killed. You know, and when he's saying that his marriage, and people are saying that his marriage was full of love, one source familiar with the household says that Maggie and Murdaugh's marriage was a union in crisis. Rumors that Murdaugh was having an affair with a fellow attorney have been widely circulated both locally and online. And according to the source who spoke with DailyMail.com, there was no love lost between the once loving couple. In fact, the source says, in the months before her violent death, Maggie and Murdaugh had argued heatedly over finances. Maggie, who was truly hardworking around the South Carolina charity scene, had been socially embarrassed when a check written by her at a charity luncheon had bounced. And it was one of many incidents that saw her not only asking questions about the family's finances, but demanding answers. You can see Buster Murdaugh, the only surviving son, being photographed and comforted at the funeral for his mother and brother on June 11th of last year. In the months following, investigators looking into Maggie and Paul's death also uncovered a litany of crime and insurance fraud that have seen them reopen two suspicious deaths linked to the family. Fitz News also reported that Maggie was living separately from Murdaugh at the family's home in Edisto Beach, and that she had only gone to Marcel on the night of her death reluctantly and on Murdaugh's request. Maggie was also reported to have gone to see a divorce lawyer in the weeks before her murder, sparking speculation that she was threatening to call in a forensic accountant. At the time, Murdaugh was under extreme pressure to cough up his financial records as part of a wrongful death suit being brought against him and his older son, Richard Buster Murdaugh Jr., by the family of Mallory Beach, the teenager killed in an horrific boat crash in 2019. Paul was drunk and at the wheel of the boat when it slammed into pilings on Archer's Creek with 6 teens, all underage, all drinking heavily aboard. Mallory Beach, who was only 19 years old, rest in peace, Mallory, she was thrown from the vessel and her body found by 2 fishermen 1 week later, 5 miles from the site. Her cause of death was blunt force trauma and drowning. Legal documents show that lawyers for Beach's family had repeatedly pressed Murdaugh for financial disclosure and set a court deadline of June 9th, just 2 days after Maggie and Paul's murders, for him to hand over all relevant paperwork. Back then, only Murdaugh knew that he was neck deep in debts in what prosecutors allege was a multi-million-dollar insurance fraud scheme and criminal enterprise. In the months following, investigators looking into Maggie and Paul's deaths, they uncover a slew of crime and insurance fraud that have them reopen 2 suspicious deaths linked to the family. A former housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, who fell after a trip and fall at Marcel in 2018, and local teen Stephen Smith, who was 19 years old. Rest in peace, Gloria. Rest in peace, Stephen. Satterfield's sons said they were defrauded out of $4.3 million wrongful death suit brought against Murdaugh on his own advice and with the promise that they would be taken care of. Instead, Alex siphoned off the funds for himself, allegedly with the help of Corey Fleming, who is a former USC roommate and fellow attorney whom he recommended the Satterfield brothers use. Corey Fleming has also been charged for his part in the scheme. Now, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Department, they did announce that it has received permission from Satterfield's family to have her body exhumed. Hampton County Coroner Angie Topper asked investigators to look at Satterfield's death again due to inconsistencies. These included the fact that her office was never informed, meaning no autopsy was conducted, and that the manner of death given on the death certificate, natural, was not consistent with a trip and fall. Similarly, the manner of Stephen Smith's death is once again the subject of investigation. The 19-year-old's body was found on a road in Hampton County in July 2015 with a head wound so devastating that investigators first thought he had been shot. Now, the truly dire state of his financial affairs, where he was defrauding a staggering $8.4 million from victims and had so many charges come down against him, it was obviously that the truly state of his financial affairs may go some way to explaining one of the most bizarre twists in the entire saga. And that's Murdaugh's failed suicide for hire plot just 3 months after Maggie and Paul's death, and 1 day after he resigned from the family's Hampton-based law firm. The firm, formerly known as Parker Murdaugh, Parker, Elstroth and Detrick, or PMPED, stripped the Murdaugh name from their masthead in January and has since rebranded as the Parker law group. The firm later claimed that Murdaugh misappropriated company funds, and at least one of Murdaugh's former colleagues is among the many bringing suits against him. Then, on September 4th of 2021, Murdaugh made his second frantic 911 call, this time to report that he had been shot while attempting to change a tire by the side of the road not far from Moselle. And from the start, the story seemed odd, his injuries unconvincing, and his description of the man so vague and contradictory that South Carolina law enforcement department chose not to release the artist's impression that Murdaugh helped generate. Within 2 weeks, the whole affair had unraveled, with Murdaugh claiming that he had hired a friend and distant relative, Curtis Eddie Smith, to shoot him in the head so that his surviving son Buster could receive a $10 million payout from his life insurance. He claimed that he had been in the throes of opioid addiction and had been for more than 2 decades and checked himself into rehab in Florida. And he was charged with insurance fraud and false reporting, while Smith was charged on several counts, including conspiracy. He too has since been slapped with other charges relating to his relationship to Murdaugh, financial wrongdoing, and drug trafficking. And so this is a little timeline of the Murdaugh family murders, death, and lawsuits and arrests. In 2015, teenager Stephen Smith died. Smith was found on the side of the road. Police officially ruled his death a hit and run, but he had suffered blunt force trauma to the head. His mother has since shared her belief that she thinks he was killed in a hate crime because he was gay. And case notes obtained by dailymail.com revealed Paul's older brother Buster was named multiple times in the investigation. Police wanted to know more about his relationship with Stephen. Stephen's mother said he had been having a fling. In a deposition years later, one of Paul's friends said the family had covered other killings up. He mentioned Smith's death. 2018, Murdaugh family housekeeper Gloria Satterfield died. Gloria dies after falling down the stairs in the family house. The family gave her $500,000 in a wrongful death settlement, but it's unclear why her death was ruled to be their fault. Alex Murdaugh was listed as the defendant in the lawsuit. Satterfield was only 57 when she died. She left behind a husband and children. Her death was also mentioned in the deposition by Paul Murdaugh's friend. In 2019, Mallory Beach dies being thrown from boat driven by Paul Murdaugh. Paul was charged afterwards because he'd been drinking and was behaving belligerently that night. He had been released on bond. Other kids were on the boat but were unharmed. One testified that they were scared to speak about the Murdaugh family because they knew how to cover things up. That boy named Stephen Smith and the housekeeper and claimed Paul pushed her. Now, June 7, 2021, Paul and Maggie are murdered. The mom and son were found shot dead at the family home in Hampton, South Carolina. Alex Murdaugh says he found them at the home. The medical examiner said the pair had been dead for an hour at most when he discovered them. June 10, 2021, Alex's 81-year-old father, Randolph Rudolph III, dies naturally and peacefully at home. September 3rd, Alex resigns from his law firm amid claims he misused funds. The firm had hired a forensic investigator to go through the accounts. On September 4th, Alex calls 911 claiming he's been shot in the head in a drive-by. He only had surface wounds and was also able to call his brother. September 6th, Alex releases a statement confirming his resignation from the firm and announcing he had entered rehab, saying, "I'm resigning from my law firm and entering rehab after a long battle that has been exasperated these murders." That is the complete update around Alex Murdaugh and now being charged with the death of his wife and son, Paul. And this is the type of things that power can do to a person. I don't know why they think they can get away with this stuff, but after years of wealth and power in the South Carolina area, looks like it caught up with him. My friends, I'm Manny Rodriguez. If this sounds like the type of content you like to follow, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you did get some value in this, please hit that like. That way, more people know there's value and YouTube will share it with more people. My friends, thank you for being a part of this today, and I look forward to serving you again. Peace.